everybody to the How She Met Her Husband and How You Can Too Summit. I'm Suzanne Oshima, and I'm a dating and relationship coach and founder of Dream Bachelor and Bachelorette, and also of Single in Stilettos. Today we have on the summit Lisa Shield, and she's a dating and relationship coach. And I'm so excited to have her here because I can't wait to hear her story because, ladies, she was doing online dating before anybody else was doing them when everybody else was embarrassed. So she's like a pioneer in this. So before we jump into it, though, I would love to tell you a little bit about Lisa. So Lisa Shield, 16 years ago, when no one would admit to dating online, Lisa posted her first profile. 2 years and 100, get this, 100 first dates later, she met and married the love of her life. Her success led to her to become one of the first dating and relationship coaches in the country. She is a sought-after relationship expert and has been featured on Bravo's The Millionaire Matchmaker, which I actually saw her on before I even met her for the summit. And I remember this episode because I remember the guy and I kept going, oh my God, he needs a lot of help. But she totally helped him. And she also has appeared on ABC News, quoted in places like Cosmo Magazine and the Los Angeles Times. Her studies include a master's in spiritual psychology, certification in life and relationship coaching from the Coaches Training Institute, intensive training with Don Miguel Ruiz, author of The Four Agreements. And over the past few years, Lisa has retained her many tried and true coaching techniques while developing new and exciting offerings for her clients. Today, she focuses her energy on an 8-week coaching program called Emotionally Naked Dating. And this intensive program provides step-by-step guidance through the trials and tribulations of the dating world. Singles can contact Lisa directly to book a spot in the upcoming program. And Lisa lives in Los Angeles, California, with her husband and best friend, Benjamin, and their 2 dogs, Milo and Owen. She coaches clients all over the country, both in person and by phone. So welcome, Lisa. I am super excited to have you.
Thank you, Suzanne. I'm so excited to be here too. And I can't believe you saw that episode of Millionaire Matchmaker. Oh my God, he was a piece of work.
Oh yeah.
He got a second date.
I'm shocked, and
Right?
I would be interested to know if he was married because he was so full of himself. And I remember thinking, oh my God, how can any woman even like this guy? But
I know, but he was actually really a sweet guy. He just he had such low self-esteem that he had all that, had like a butler and all this stuff. He didn't need a butler. This was not a guy with a butler lifestyle, but he was trying to find himself. So I hope he's found himself.
Yeah, let's cross our fingers because we all want, honestly, everybody to find love, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Lisa, I know you have an amazing story about how you met your husband, and I know it wasn't an easy road to get there. So can you tell us your love story? Everybody wants to know.
All right. Well, I'm going to go back a bit to my first husband, who I was with for a total of 13 years. And this was really the first man who paid attention to me. At the time I met him, we were in school together, and it was an exciting time, and circumstances brought us together. We were on an adventure we were becoming photographers and going to this really great photo school. So it was exciting, and I had no relationship experience, and I had no ability to see who he really was. And so I wound up spending 13 years with this man who turned out to be a pathological liar. Oh. And, people might think, how does an intelligent woman spend 13 years and not realize that this man is a pathological liar? And all I can tell you is that when you love somebody and you want to see the best in them, and you desperately don't want to be alone, you look the other way and you minimize things. So finally, I had taken a lot of the blame for what wasn't working in our marriage because I had my own issues and problems. And one day, this is an incredible story, and it was really the beginning of my journey. I was so depressed and I was so afraid. I think for the first 13 years of my life, I thought that I would, I mean, for the first 13 years, for the first 34 years of my life, I would have been classified as clinically depressed. If I had gotten evaluated, I think some doctor would have put me on meds. And I'm glad that they didn't, because I didn't numb out and I did have to face this stuff. And I wound up, I can say this now pretty shamelessly, but at the time we were living and working in Milan, Italy as photographers, and my self-esteem was so low. Like, I would go out and I'd show my portfolio, and if I got a break, I would sabotage it because I didn't have the self-confidence to really do it. And I had some very good breaks, which is a shame when I look back, but I just didn't have whatever it took to get forward. So I was so worried that my ex-husband was going to figure out that I was never going to get my life together, because I was on this bad, cycle, and I was scared to death that he was going to leave me. And because we were in Italy, we had no access to therapy. I didn't have access to therapy. I didn't have books. I didn't have the internet at that time, didn't exist. And I had to figure this thing out. And I wish I had it in front of me, but I don't know how I came across it. I had this little tiny book from, believe it or not, the Self-Realization Fellowship. It was from Paramahansa Yogananda, and they had distilled, it was called the Success Principles, this big. And I would read and reread and read again this little tiny book. And it was all I had. It was literally all I had. And finally, one day I started to smoke pot, and it wasn't something that I really did frequently, but at that time, I didn't know what else to do. And I was a photographer. I went in the darkroom and I'd be rocking these trays, and I'd smoke some pot, and I was starting to analyze my life. And it was literally like, I became my own therapist, and I was asking myself all these questions. And this was the turning point. I knew I needed help, but I was so defensive and so closed off. And somewhere, somebody had said to me, if you hear something one time, it's usually somebody else projecting their stuff on you. But if you've heard something over and over again in your life from several different people, that's a sign that it's something you need to look at. And so I asked myself, what is it that people have been telling you all your life that you need to look at, that you've been afraid to hear? And what it was that people used to always say to me, why are you so defensive?
Mm. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, Lisa, because when you were telling the story about how you were married to this man for 13 years and how you were afraid of all of these things and afraid of being found out, and all I kept thinking while you were telling the story is, oh my God, 13 years, you were in such pain and so alone, even though you were married, because you were so afraid of being found out, not only in your personal life, in your marriage, but also in your professional life and in another country, which is painful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was isolated because I was so shut down. I was codependent. My dad was alcoholic, and my mother had been a complete raging codependent. I mean, I didn't know any of these things then, but I know them now. And I didn't realize how they had affected me, but I was so afraid of people, and I was so afraid to open up. And this man was really all I had. To add one thing, my mother had died of breast cancer when I was 15. And so Suzanne, I was alone in the world. Like, this man was everything to me. And the thought of leaving him or losing him was like ripping off a limb, you know? And so I was in the darkroom and I realized that I was defensive. And then I thought to myself, I started to unravel these little, like I'd pick a thread and I'd pull it, you know, and everything started to just unravel. And I realized that I was so, you know, like I asked myself, why would people say that to me? And why did it matter? Like, what was that blocking me from? And I started to see that, well, when you tell a defensive person they're defensive, it just makes them more defensive, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem with that one. But I decided that, you know, I looked at it and I said, well, why are people saying this? And I said, they're saying it because you're not open. You won't listen, you know. And then I realized what I needed was help. I desperately needed help, but I was so afraid to open up and let somebody help me. And so I said to myself, well, what am I going to do? And I said, well, you know, because I had gotten beaten up so badly for so much of my life. I was bullied as a kid, and my mother and my grandmother and my father were super critical. And so I was very afraid of feedback. I always felt misunderstood. Anyway, I went through this process in the dark room and I started to unravel all of this stuff. And this was the biggest thing. Prior to this, I couldn't imagine my life without my husband. And for the first time, I closed my eyes and I started to think about what life would be like without him. And I was like, oh my God, it wouldn't be so bad, you know?
Oh my God,
like,
revelation.
Yeah, it's not all me, you know, it's not, yeah, I'm not the one that's bringing us down. He's got issues. And I started to see, hey, this guy has money problems and he borrows money from people and he never pays them back. And, you know, and then I started really unraveling the whole thing. And I realized I had one huge breakthrough, which was I asked myself why I was so sad all the time. Because I was sad. And I realized that the answer that came back was that when my mom was dying, I told myself I would always be sad. And then I thought, oh my God, I made that up. And then I thought, wait a minute, that worked. Like I made that up and that worked. And I said, well, I don't want to be sad anymore. And so I thought, well, I'm going to make up a new belief. Like I'm going to make up that I'm wiser because my mom died. And I was like, okay, that's a little better. Like that works. And then I was like, oh my God, I just made that up. And I started to see that I create my own reality. And I realized that, you know, all of it was true. It was true that it was sad that my mom died, and it was true that I was wiser. But I realized that when I told myself good things, I felt positive and optimistic. And when I told myself negative stories, I felt defeated, you know, and like life was one big dead end after another. And so I just said, I'm going to start putting a positive spin on everything. Like, this is crazy. And so I did. And that's how I got myself out of my marriage. I became positive. I started to come out of the dark room. And once I started to do that, I realized that I couldn't keep doing, like I had to just keep going. And my husband and I were having the same argument about money that we had been having for 13 years. And I stopped in the middle of this discussion and I looked at him and I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, I can't do this. I'm done. We've been having this same discussion since the day we met. And I said, you need to figure out your money issues, but that's not my problem. And I literally packed my bags, and 2 days later, I left Italy. And that was the beginning. And so,
like, yeah. I just have to point out something because it struck me so much when you said it, is you said, I was in the dark room and then I came out, and it was like this whole, and it was like a parallel. And I was like, oh my God, like everything just came to light to her. And it's amazing. And then you just realize that this isn't the life that you wanted. And the other thing I have to point out to the ladies, because it's so important, is how you changed your belief system and how you made it come true, because we are in control of that. It has nothing to do with somebody else, and that it has to do with us, and it's within us that we can make ourselves happy.
Yeah. And I mean, it was literally a story I was telling myself. And you had asked me before we started the call, one of the things that you had said was to talk about some of the tools that I work with when I work with my clients. The part about that story that I left out is probably one of the key things in my entire life. And I know many different people do this in different ways. I really have to say I stumbled on it. I stumbled on this on my own. Nobody told me about this, or it wasn't something I read somewhere. It was really something that I devised on my own. When I realized that I create my own reality, I really literally said to myself, if I'm going to create my own reality, I'm going to really make it up. Like, I'm just going to make it up. And so what I did was, and I thought, why would I want to believe in someone else's story? Like, I don't want to believe in stuff that other people tell me is their truth. I mean, that's their reality. And I realized that I believe in a power greater than me, but I don't believe in the Bible. I didn't write that book. That's somebody else's story of creation. It's not my story of creation. I don't know what the story of creation is. Nobody really does. And so I sat back and I said, I'm going to make up my own. I'm going to make up my own God. Like, I'm going to create my own being that I can talk to and relate to, who's mine, who's just mine and doesn't belong to anybody else. He'll be my own God that I can talk to. I didn't realize at the time that this was really my higher self that I was dialoguing with. But, his name, because I was reading Paramahansa Yogananda, that little book, I just put these two things together. There was a name in that book. The name was Pantangeli, and Pantangeli was the he was the translator of the Vedas, these sacred Vedic scripts from Hindu Vedic scripts. But I didn't know that at the time. I just thought Pantangeli sounded like a really wicked cool name, right? And so you don't name a dog or a kid Pantangeli.
Right.
At least we wouldn't do that. And so I named my spirit guide Pantangeli.
Aww.
And so he's been with me literally my whole life. Like, since that point, I meditate. And when I meditate, I go and I talk to Pantangeli. And he's been this incredible force in my life. And I have to say, like, he's as real to me as anything is. One time I was at the gym and I was exercising, and when you're on the elliptical machine or you're exercising, you're actually in an elevated state. And it's a very highly creative state. And so I do a lot of my meditating with Pantangeli on the elliptical. And one day I was kind of like, I asked the question, I really did ask this. I said, is this really doing anything? Am I just deluded? Like, I like it, works for me. I feel good, but is it really, like, is this just some game I'm playing with myself or what? And I literally got done and I was working out, and this man walks up to me and he said, I just got to tell you that other people in the gym come in here and they look so stressed out. And he said, you look like you've just been meditating.
Oh my God, that's so weird.
Is that weird?
That's really weird that he said that.
He walked right up to me and he was like, you look like you've just been meditating. And I was like, okay.
Well, you were doing it right.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to kind of, but I got out of the marriage, and it was a long process. But what I told myself was he had to figure out what his issues were. That was not for me. It became clear to me, clearer and clearer. I found more evidence and things came to light. I did not go looking for information, but I found out some things that he had been lying to me about that were just big lies that I didn't even, like, my head was somewhere else. But I just thought, he's got to figure himself out. I left because I don't want to have to deal with that anymore, but I need to figure out why I picked him and why I stayed with him for 13 years. So I did everything. I went on a journey, a personal growth journey, and I did everything. First of all, I hate groups. I'm going to put this out there. You guys need to be in groups. You need communities. I don't care if you get on Facebook groups and participate. I don't care if you go do Landmark Forum. I don't care if you go do a yoga teacher training. You've got to get yourself into a community. It is I don't like it. Some people thrive in groups. That is not me. That is not me. But you can't hide out in a group. It forces you to realize that, I don't care if you go to a 12-step program. I don't care what it is, but you got to do it, because that's where you really, that if you do it right, it's a very humbling thing, because you can walk into a group thinking, I'm the loving one, I'm the evolved one. And then you get into the group and you realize, oh my God, wait, she's stealing my thunder. Everybody thinks she's the loving one, and I thought I was. So anyway, I did one group after another, even though I hate them with a passion. I'm getting better, but it is such a great way to learn and grow and really challenge yourself. I am the hugest believer in community. I'm in a mastermind program right now that is the best thing I've ever done in my life. But so anyway, do groups. So I did groups. I worked with Don Miguel in a huge group. I was in a 12-step program. I did therapy. I got my master's in spiritual psychology, which was another group program. But I did anything and everything that I possibly could to really challenge myself and grow. That's why I love my program, my dating coaching program, because one of the components of that program is that there is a group. There is a Facebook group, and then there's every week we have a live Q&A and a group for that. So I got out, I did all this work, and I became the most fabulous I thought anyway, that I was the most fabulous version of me that I had ever been, right? After really walking through hell and really looking at myself and stripping off all my layers, I got to a place where I really realized, okay, getting me, and you may get this, Suzanne, I mean, I'm sure you get this, doing me was just half the equation, right? Like getting happy with myself and loving who I am was only, I was only halfway there. The real, if you are a spiritual being and you are in touch with this journey that we're all on, the second half of that journey, once you find yourself, is to let go and surrender to partnership. That to me is the second half of this journey. And I realized that I was ready for that, but there were no men in my life.
So let me ask you a question, Lisa, because it's interesting. You talk, and I completely agree with you, by the way, about doing groups, and that's where I think it's amazing that you don't even have to do groups in person. You can actually do groups online. That's what's great about the internet, but you need that support system to get you through those hard times. So from the time that you left your first husband to the time that you did all this work, what's the time frame? Because I can hear my audience going, okay, how long did that take her to do all of that?
It took me, so there was a 6-year span, 6 years. And I'm not saying I didn't get laid and I didn't have a man in my life.
Well, thank God.
Right? That would have sucked. Those were good years.
Right.
Those were very good years. I'm not a saint, and I was not holding out for marriage, and I'm not a virgin. So I'm going to just be clear about that. I was not putting my life on hold. Right. I was living my life, and I was meeting people. And of course, in all of that, I was hoping that someone would come along. But that was 6 years where I really was doing that work. And then there were 2 more years that I was dating online. And I really believe, I don't know if they do this anymore, but when they age blue jeans, they used to put pumice stone in the wash with the jeans to age them, to make them, they would wash them and with pumice stone to get them all beat up and aged. And that, I mean, this may not be a pretty explanation, but that's how I felt dating was. Like being online was sort of polishing me and breaking me down even further, and the less resistant I was, and the more willing I was to just open up to this opportunity and let myself soften. Because that's what happens, when that pumice hits those jeans, it softens them, it makes them supple, it makes them, they've got that age and that beauty that and that's kind of like how I felt when I was dating. Was this process was softening me. It was helping me. You have to do it in the right way. Like my theory was, so by the time I got to dating, I realized that I had had some relationships and I'd met some good men. In fact, I was seeing someone when I put myself back online, but he was much older than me and he was a confirmed bachelor, and that was not going to go anywhere other than where it was. Right. And so I told him, I said, I'm dating. And I said, I'm going to, I want to meet somebody. I want to create a life with someone. And so I was very honest with him. And he lived in San Francisco. I'm in LA. And so I'm so grateful to him. I mean, he was a fabulous man and I still adore him. But he wasn't the man I was going to spend my life with. And I knew that. So I put myself online. And I want to share this with everybody because this was so key. I was on a spiritual path. I was getting my master's in spiritual psychology. I was doing all of these things. For anyone who doesn't know and isn't aware of it, 12-step programs are a spiritual path. You are you are surrendering to a higher power. That's what a 12-step program is. So I was working with Don Miguel, which was another spiritual program. So here I was involved in all these different things. And one day, I don't know how or why, I was thinking about all of this and something occurred to me. I had always known or believed for me that all paths and religions are really paths to God or unconditional love. But what I didn't realize was that they're all showing us how to get there now. They're not saying you have to be an ascended master or live 100 lifetimes and be perfect. What they're doing is they're literally giving us the tools to get there in this lifetime. And when I got that, it was a revelation, because what I saw was, if that was possible, then I was going to do everything in my power. And I realized it was within my control, that I needed to let go of my had of my arrogance, of my need to feel special and separate. I had to learn how to have faith. I had to really master gratitude. I had to learn how to, be compassionate and caring and loving. And so my dating journey became about that. I was, the one was at the end of the road. I knew he was out there. Look, I'm not so special and I'm not so awful that there's not somebody fabulous out there for me, right? And I want you guys to think about that. You are not so awful and you're not so fabulous that there's not somebody who would adore you and want to, wake up every day thinking that he or she was the luckiest person alive to be with you. I mean, come on, get over yourself, right?
Exactly. And that's exactly why I'm doing this summit, because I want women, every single woman out there, no matter what her life experience, how she looks or whatever, what's going on within her on the inside, is that there's somebody for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's never too late.
And as Marianne Williamson says, you got to love yourself, because if you wouldn't want to spend a night at home with you, why would someone else want to spend, a night at home with you? Look,
exactly.
You got to realize, it's like we're all works in progress, and even if you were perfect to who? Like, exactly. To whom? Like, am I perfect? No, I mean, a lot of people would say I'm not. I think my husband would say he thinks I'm perfect for him. I know my husband's perfect for me. So, we make up all this bullshit about, that we're not good enough or whatever. So I think it's really all a lie or an excuse because we're afraid. We're just afraid to let our guard down and really put ourselves out there and see if somebody will just love us the way we are. But what I realized was before I could ask someone to love me the way I am, I had to first be willing to love someone the way he was. So when I went on dates, I would sit across from these men and I would ask myself, can I accept this man sitting across from me exactly the way he is without wanting to fix him or change him in any way? Because I want someone to do that for me. I'm not perfect, and I'm certainly open to growing and changing, but I don't want somebody coming into a relationship with an agenda to make me into someone I'm not.
Exactly. So now tell us how did you meet your husband? You met him online, right?
We met, so I went on about 100 first dates over 2 years. They were all first dates. There were only 2 second dates in all that time. I did do some other things. I went to singles parties. There wasn't meetup.com at the time, but JDate was the site I used, and they had singles parties here in LA. So I would get dressed up. I did everything by myself. I went on my own. I felt like it was counterproductive to go with a girlfriend. I would get dressed up. If I wanted to meet a girlfriend afterward for a drink, I would. But I would go to these events alone because it made me get out of my comfort zone. And women are way more approachable when they're by themselves.
Yep.
And I looked hot. Like I had this BB jacket. I got to tell you, you need, when you go to these events, you should have a conversation piece of some kind, something that makes you stand out that a man can comment on. So I had this like leather jacket, this long leather jacket with the like the 70s jacket with the fur on the sleeves and around the bottom. And then I had these really hot pair of like really high boots, and I would walk into these parties and I got some attention and guys loved it, and I was by myself. And, it was really, and when people asked me, why are you here alone? I'd say, because I'm here to meet someone. I want to meet.
So smart. That is so smart that you did that.
Yeah.
For someone who doesn't like groups, that was very brave of you.
Thank you. Well, I'm brave, but I was determined. I got to tell you something. Clarity, certainty, and confidence. Like I was clear that that I could do it. Mm-hmm. I was certain there was somebody out there for me, and I had the confidence that it was, that I could go for it when I met the right guy. So I sat across, I went on all these dates. There were a few little interludes in between, but one day I got an email from a man, and he said, it was so lovely. And Benjamin has a very unique style in the way he speaks. And, he's really just got a very poetic soul. And so he wrote me this email, and it said, your profile has depth and charm. Like, who doesn't want to have depth and charm, right?
Exactly.
And then he said, would you like to chance a meeting? And he said, dinner/drinks/ coffee. And he said, my name is Benjamin Shield, and here's my number if you'd like, to contact me. And I wrote him back, and I was being very silly and in the moment by this time. Like I had lost my pretenses, and I was just putting it out there. So I wrote him back and I said, okay, Benjamin Shield, you made the first cut. And he called his best friend, and he had just gotten online. He was new to this whole thing. So he called his best friend in a panic, and he said, I made the first cut. Like, this woman's got criteria. What do I have to do to make the second cut? Anyway,
that's so funny.
It was really cute. And I had said to him in the email, I said, I'm going to Vietnam for 3 weeks. If you'd like to meet before I go, I have 3 days. Give me a call. And so we literally had one email back and forth and a 5-minute phone call. And I was sitting in the restaurant waiting and waiting and waiting. And he was late. 20 minutes later, I get a phone call that we didn't have, the cell phones were just taking off at the time. And he called the restaurant in a panic. And he said, is there a woman who's been sitting there for a long time by herself? And they said, yes. And so they got me on the phone, and he said, I'm so sorry. He said, I missed the turnoff and I went all the way into East LA. He said, I'm making my way back towards you. And I had been reading Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Mm-hmm. And Eckhart Tolle said, if somebody's late, just say to them, I'm sitting here enjoying myself. So I'm in joy. And so I said, I'm just sitting here enjoying myself. And I said, take your time. I'll be here when you get here. And Benjamin said in that moment, he said, I was so kind that he thought, who is this woman?
You know, it's, you know, when you were just saying that one part of it, the part that I took away from it is because, first of all, I used to live in LA, so I know the traffic is horrible in LA. So
horrible.
And so I'm thinking like what Benjamin's thinking, and here he is panicked, and he's like, oh my God, I'm late. And he's feeling horrible that he's late. And then you just took all of the pressure off when you said that, and he just felt, oh, okay, it's okay. Now I can relax. And I could just feel that.
Well, and here's the other part of it. Benjamin is early for everything. It is in his, like, being late for something is a mortal sin in Benjamin's book. In his rule book, that is like, you're not late for something. And so he thought that he thought nothing good could come of this date. So that was like a miraculous thing. And then he said, he came in and this is Benjamin. He's really, he's an amazing person. And he comes in and he takes my hand and he I'm sitting down and he looks straight into my eyes and he says, it is so nice to meet you. And he just connects with me, like looks right into my eyes. And I literally, like, I just went like this and I thought, oh my God, this is the kindest human being I have ever met. And he is. And he sat down and he did not break my gaze. Like he literally looked into my eyes and was the most present human being I had ever seen. Like he was right there with me through the entire dinner. And I guess at one point he asked me, I said something to him about, I said, Benjamin, I've been working so hard on myself. I said, since I left my ex-husband, I have been working so hard. And I said, you know what? All I want to do is find a partner and have fun. Like I said, I'm done working hard. I've done my hard work. That is over. I said, whatever's from here on out, it's not going to be hard. I'm happy. I love myself. I love my life. He said that was the most beautiful thing any woman had ever said to him.
Oh, that's such a great story. I love that. He sounds amazing.
Yeah, I have to tell you, Suzanne, and I know I'm not the only woman on the planet who feels this way. I'm sure you're going to talk to a lot of women who are really, deeply in love with their partners. He's just, I cannot tell you, this man is my angel. In fact, one of the things he said in his JDate profile, they have a question that says, what is your ideal relationship? And Benjamin wrote, my ideal relationship is that we will be guardians of each other's souls.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. And
Yeah.
oh my God, I could tell that's still getting you emotional today. And you've been married for how long now?
We've been together for 15 years and married for 13.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
an amazing story. And you went through and you did all that work. And it's important because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people go from relationship to relationship and they don't do the work. And it is important to do the work. And now
Yeah.
you have this beautiful marriage with this amazing man.
Yeah.
So my question to you, Lisa, would be for the ladies out there that are going through these trials and tribulations, can you give them a couple of tips on how they can turn their love life around like you did?
Well, the first thing is there's so many things I would love to tell you guys. I mean, I'd love to tell all the women. Um, I think one of the biggest turnarounds for me was when I stopped blaming other people or the powers that be or the system at law, or any outside forces. And I really stepped back and I said, Lisa, you have to take responsibility for the outcome of your actions and your choices. And that meant 100%, not 99, not 79 or 85 or 99%, but it was 100%. I am accountable for what I say and I do. And, it hasn't just led to the man of my dreams because I didn't want a dramatic relationship. Like
Right.
I am a no drama mama. Like I am not going to put my stuff on my husband. I
Mm-hmm.
love this man with every cell in my body. And I am here to make his life easier and lighter, more joyful. He is not responsible for my stuff.
Right.
Nobody is. And I think because of that, I think Benjamin just adores me. And he's the one who said, you don't take things personally better than Don Miguel. He said, he said, our relationship is such a joy because of you. So when
Right.
I dated, I didn't blame the guys. If there
Mm-hmm.
was, I didn't blame myself either. I
Mm-hmm.
just was accountable for my choices. I
Right.
was accountable for my emotions and my actions. Do you work on that with your clients, Suzanne?
Yes, exactly. Because what I always tell my clients is a relationship is 50-50. Is you can't blame just him for things that are going on, is you have to look at yourself and say, what part am I playing in this equation? Because it's not
Mm-hmm.
just him, no matter what. So it is important to take responsibility for your own actions. So
Well, see,
these
and
are,
I even look at it as it's 100%, 100%.
oh,
So
there you
I
go.
think we are each 100% responsible for our part. So,
Right.
and we've had moments in our relationship where we will hold each other accountable
Mm-hmm.
for something. Um, and sometimes it's really hard to have that mirror put up in our face, but I love it when it happens. I mean, there's something about it that, what? I love it when my husband holds me accountable for stuff.
Well, and I think
It's
that
sexy.
the part that you just brought up there, the part that is so important for women to understand in a relationship is that you have to have the partner that's willing to participate in that. Because if you're the only one
Right.
participating and they're not it's not going to work. So these have been some amazing tips. So Lisa, I know you have a free gift for the
I
ladies. So can you
do.
tell them a little bit about it?
Yes, let me tell you really quickly. I have an 8-week course that I have put together, which is the thing I am, next to my husband, most proud of. It is the synthesis of everything I do in a year's worth of coaching. If you were to coach with me every week for a solid year, you would not get the information that you get in this 8-week course. And when you do the course, you have me as your guide. I walk you through it step by step. There are online modules. There are group participate, there's group participation, the Facebook group, so you have the support of a group of fabulous like-minded women who are on the same path as you are. It is for powerhouse women who want this, who want to get out there and do it now. And then you have one-on-one coaching with me. So I have a free webinar that you can watch. And then once you watch that webinar, I will do a 1-hour consult with you. You can decide not to do the program at the end of that consult, but you'll still get this 1-hour discovery session with me that will give you major insights into your dating and what's working and not working.
Awesome. So ladies, to go get Lisa's free gift, you can click right here on this page to go get her free gift. So thank you, Lisa.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne, for having me. It was such a joy. And I just want to send my love to all the women out there. Don't give up hope. This is so doable, and just keep going. I know it can get discouraging, but there's somebody out there for each and every one of you. I know that. Suzanne knows that. That's why we do what we do, because we want everybody to have this. I want you to have your Benjamin.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Lisa.
My pleasure.